Okay, the core is done. It's been a little rainy, so I've gotten slowed down again, but I'm getting ready to put the tow rails back on. That's going to seal up the whole edge of the boat where there's a bunch of holes right now. But you can see all the deck is back on, fiberglassed in. So I've been cleaning the edge here where the tow rail is going to sit. I'm going to do a little fairing and just fill in some of the holes and gouges in the edge here, like that. A few things I'm going to do to prepare. I'm going to sand the edge here where it's going to sit, and then make sure it's clean. Now I'm going to sand the tow rails. Basically everything you do in a sailboat restoration is going to involve sanding. So if you're not sanding, you're probably forgetting to sand. The reason I'm sanding is I oiled the Teak, and now I'm just going to sand it so there's no oil on the top. And I'm actually going to be coating the bottom of the tow rails in epoxy, just straight up epoxy. It'll be really durable, it'll last for a long time, and the bottom, I feel, is kind of where most of the corrosion, or most of the rotting occurred, because the water gets in there and sits. So, and because it's going to be against the deck, there's no, there's no UV damage that'll be occurring, and that's the major weakness of epoxy. So it should be a fine bottom layer. Okay, I'm now cleaning with acetone in preparation for the epoxy. So what I do to prepare is get a little bit of acetone in a cup. So between the brushing of the epoxy, I'll put the brush in there, and that'll keep it from just solidifying halfway through. And I've got a stirring popsicle stick, small measuring cup, large measuring cup. I'm doing about 2 ounces of epoxy, so I'll put in a ½ an ounce of hardener. Stir it up, and then I'm off. cutting plugs for the Teak tow rails. I've got the boards ready. You need a bit to cut a plug, looks something like that. You need something to keep it stable. I'm using just a handheld guide for the drill. So I just put that right in this piece. And then you take your drill. So I've got this baby here. It is probably as old as the Teak itself. So 40 years. It is either full power or no power. It's not variable speed, so. But I'm using it because it's corded, so I can just keep going and I don't got to worry about batteries. So this goes right on the top here. I tighten this up onto that. Yeah. So I really only need to use the thin ones. Now the first drill bit I was using to cut the plugs was, it seemed to just be real hard and it wasn't cutting very well. So I got a one that was more expensive. It's a little different style and it actually seems to be working a lot better for me. It's a lot easier to cut. And I also was originally cutting them, I thought I had to cut all the way through, so I cut the width to what I wanted. And then I saw that you can just cut in the depth you want and then pop it out with a screwdriver. So let me show you what I'm doing. There you go. And compared to the first ones I was doing, this is the first one I did. So this is the first cutter I was using. This is the second. And so overall I'd say this one is a lot better. Maybe just sharper. It seems a lot smoother and less chewed up. The tow rails are going back on the boat. Very excited. These are one of the first things we took off, and about a year later, after a lot of TLC, they are ready to go back. Gonna give the bottom final wipe down with some acetone. I did epoxy it, so the epoxy does leave a little bit of wax residue once it cures, so I'll just wipe that off. As soon as you finish that, I put the rest in the holes. You just have to drive them in. I'm going to go down and start putting bolts on, and then I'm going to caulk. So what I forgot to do on the first one that I remembered to do now and will make life a lot easier is I'm masking off the wood, so when the caulk comes out and I get off the excess, it won't be all over the wood. Toe rails are done. Just finished before it's getting dark. So the sealant is all in and they're screwed down. Just gonna let them cure 24 hours and then come back and remove any extra that's squeezed out on the edge. The tape worked very well. Oh yeah, then I gotta come back and put all the plugs in the holes here. That'll take me like a day or two. Okay guys, I'm putting the plugs in. Just using the pre-cut plugs I made. A little bit of epoxy and just a light tap with a hammer will get them in. So the tow rails actually really boosted my spirits more than I expected. It's really the first, it's the first piece that has gone back on the boat that's actually noticeable from the outside. Up until now, it's pretty much looked the same from the outside, since you don't notice the floor and you can't see the core. Actually looks really good after a year of looking at the same thing. It's one more step ready for the water.